I was a part of the army when this accident happened. I never enlisted in the military because it was my dream or anything, but only because it was a pattern in my family. My father served his lifetime in the military, and his father did the same. So by the time I reached the age to choose a career for myself, joining the force seemed the only safe option. I thought I would be able to please my family by following in the footsteps of my ancestors, but little did I know that it would turn out to be the biggest mistake of my life. Not because I was having a hard time adjusting, or was depressed because of the event that I experienced that altered my brain chemistry forever. It was the month of August, and I was deployed at Fort Dietrich in Maryland. It was as if life was going down the drain. Fort Dietrich was notorious for being one of the spookiest placements ever. I ended up being there for much longer than I wanted to, and that's what I disliked most about being part of the military. You get to give all the control to someone else, so no matter how painstakingly I wished to get out of that place, I soon made peace with the fact that it wasn't my decision to make. It's not like I didn't know what life in the military was like. I've heard about it since the day I was born. It's just that I always thought I would adjust over time, that I would turn out to be like my dad. But boy, was I wrong. I never adjusted. The base never felt like home to me. The resentment for it only grew, and it peaked that night when I had the most terrifying experience of my life. Most people don't know about it, but Fort Dietrich's base was used to conduct some outlandish biological experiments. It had been routine since the Pearl Harbor attack. However, it wasn't something anyone could openly discuss. If it wasn't bizarre enough on its own, there were a couple of rumors regarding the experiment that a toxin had accidentally been released into the atmosphere. I didn't believe it at all. After all, it could be just another twisted rumor of the base camp, and I wasn't least interested in finding out the truth behind it. Until destiny landed me right in front of the truth one day. It was a usual evening when I decided to walk around to clear my head of all thoughts. I was honestly in a miserable state in my life and hated almost everything I did. Not only did the profession demand too much of me, but I always felt isolated, and it was slowly eating me up. That night was quiet and peaceful. There was no one to be seen and absolutely nothing to be heard except for the cool air and my footsteps. I closed my eyes to take in the moment, and let go of all the anxiety that had been building up inside me. It was awfully comforting. Comforting to be around no one, under no command as to what my next move should be. It was the most relaxed I'd felt in months. I still wish sometimes to go back to that moment and freeze it forever. I felt euphoric and wished I could drown in it forever. But before long, it felt like someone tall was following me. I stopped short and peeked over my shoulder, but there was nothing. I resumed walking, but still felt an intense gaze over me. It wouldn't stop, and it started getting stronger with each second that passed. I stopped again and looked around to see what it was, but nothing was there. At this point, I was getting pissed, so I leaned against the nearest wall and ran my eyes all over the place, trying desperately to find out who this crazy stalker was. No one. But then my eyes caught something running from the side. I looked over and saw someone hiding behind the yellow building across the road. They saw me and immediately backed off as if scared to be caught. It was a childish act, but I was pretty sure it wasn't a kid running around the block at this hour of night. They were pretty huge. I started taking slow steps toward the building to see who it really was. It was getting dark, and I shouldn't have been walking into a quiet, abandoned building, but I guess the military training rubbed off on me because I was dedicated to finding out who this mysterious person was. If only I knew, I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I switched on my phone's flashlight and called out to whoever it was. "Hello?" I said. No reply. "Is there someone out there?" Still nothing. "Look, I hope you know it's a criminal offense to be trespassing on private property." And that's when something shifted towards my right, and I heard footsteps toward the stairs. Whatever it was heading towards the roof. I came out of the building to see what it was, and that's when I got the shock of my life. It was so astonishing that I fell down, my eyes still fixed on what was in front of me. A huge skeletal figure stood on top of the building, looking at me with bloodshot eyes. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out of my mouth. It was shooting daggers at me, as if I had intruded on something I shouldn't have. And then, it screeched. It was so loud that I had to cover my ears to save them from the impact. It continued for a few seconds, and I remained there, shivering and panicked about what would happen next. I was still in my trance when it leaped on me. Terrified, I got up at once and just started running. It was following me from behind and came so close that I could feel its hot breath on the nape of my neck. But I didn't stop. I ran as fast as I could until I couldn't feel it behind me anymore. Struggling to catch my breath, I turned back and saw it again, but this time it was on another rooftop, and within a second jumped onto another one. I watched as it leaped to different rooftops in the city, and that's when it dawned on me. This thing wasn't human, but there was something human about it. It was running on all fours, but its legs looked human. And the heart-wrenching scream I heard minutes ago had not affected anyone other than me. The whole place was quieter than before, with no person in sight. What was happening? With thousands of questions in my head, I returned to my dorm, and wishing that the night would pass quickly and I would wake up to realize it was all a dream. But it wasn't a dream. I couldn't sleep. Whenever I closed my eyes, I saw the same angered red eyes looking back at me. In the morning, I went to my chief to talk about it. He seemed annoyed that I had brought the topic up. It was as if he didn't want to talk about it, but I wasn't taking no for an answer. I kept demanding an explanation for what I had just seen until he gave me one. He took me to the side and looked around before saying anything to ensure no one was around to hear us. I was growing more curious by the second, but what he said next rendered me speechless. Look, people make mistakes, and we did too. No one talks about what was released that night anymore, and neither should you if you know what's best for you. I tried to explain to him how their little mistake could harm many city residents, but he didn't look bothered. He kept telling me how they had it under control, but it wasn't under control. I wouldn't have seen it jumping around the town if it was under control. I tried resisting and even talked to some of my dorm mates about it, but the responses were the same. Keep your mouth shut if you know what's good for you. Seeing all of them so unmoved about what was the most traumatizing experience of my life led me to realize what type of a selfish community I was a part of, and how I didn't want to be part of them, ever again. And that's when I made another crucial decision in my life, but this time I was sure of what I was signing myself up for. I left the base in that same week and moved from the city, because even though it's been years since I saw that creature, I still feel like I'm being followed around.